What's going on, everybody? It is the FF Mediators, and I am joined with Tyler, Coach, and myself, Matt. We are excited to talk about some Dynasty Rebuild targets and what we are doing for our teams that we are currently rebuilding and kind of walk through our process for that. So, as we said in our tips and tricks video, you need to always be evaluating your team. You're looking at your points for, your points against, and your max points for. Really is a good indicator of how your team is doing, stacking up against the other teams in your league, and kind of what you need to be doing for evaluating your team and finding a way to get back into position and start contending again. And something that we always advise for people to do is always have your picks. So if you've traded your future first, you need to go back and get those, because if you're tanking, that first is going to be really high. So you want to make sure you get that pick back. And of course, that goes hand in hand with hoarding picks. So be sure to move any older vets you have on your team and try and go get some young guys or some picks. So that way you can have youthful positions that are impactful positions going forward too. Um, you know, for us, a big thing is, how can we find those young guys? And some of the young guys that I've been targeting on my rebuilding teams include guys like Jonathan Brooks. He's been injured, he's been on IR. Contending teams might not be thinking about him if they drafted him at the end of the first round. And right now, you could probably send, you know, a couple vets and maybe a pick or a few older guys that are aging and get back Jonathan Brooks that really could help your team. And for me, that's something that I want. I want to have youth on my team. Another name is Puka Nakua. He's an elite wide receiver with a great offense coordinator, a good quarterback right now. And he's going to come back and he's going to be good. But right now, contending teams aren't using him. He's on IR. So target those players that are young and have potential to be elite athletes and elite playmakers on the field. And that way they can help your team. So I want to ask Coach, is there anybody that you're out there looking for to help improve your dynasty teams that might be rebuilding?
Well, I'll tell you about a trade I just did in a league where I'm doing a rebuild, which honestly, if you're doing a rebuild to me, sometimes that's one of the most fun things you can do in Dynasty. There's a lot of things you can do there and just have a lot of fun with it. But I took a Stephon Diggs who's 31 years old. He's not going to help me next year or the year after, probably. So I went ahead and moved him. I actually got traded him for Rashee Rice. Obviously, Rashee Rice may not play again this year, most likely. The ACL thing's up in the air. He hit the IR yesterday. But that's a guy, I mean, it's the top 5 wide receiver, man, at this point, that I'm hoping next year will come back and help be healthy and can help me really turn my season around. So I traded a 31-year-old Diggs for a 24-year-old hurt Rashee Rice, who hopefully will help me out the next 3 years.
Yeah, and you're getting younger at like I said, an impactful position of wide receiver. Diggs probably won't help you by the time you're competing. Rasheed Rice might. So that's something that you're always trying to do is find those guys that can really help your team. And we often say that if you're rebuilding, you want to start by selling the running back, excuse me, and you build around the quarterbacks and the wide receivers because those are the more important positions that they can play longer and they are going to provide fantasy points for your team. So if you have a big name running back, say like Saquon Barkley, you need to be moving off of him. If you have a Jonathan Taylor, probably moving off him. If you have a Jahmyr Gibbs, that's someone you probably want to hold if you can. Tyler, is there any players out there for your dynasty teams that are rebuilding that you're trying to acquire or you're trying to move?
So actually, I'll talk about the team that we co-manage. So me and Matt have had this rebuilding roster for I think like two or 3 years now. Our quarterbacks were T Law, uh, Joe Burrow, and then we actually drafted Caleb Williams this year. We had a high pick, so we were sitting with a pretty solid quarterback room. We kind of sat there and went back and forth trying to figure out who had the most value. We actually ended up getting an offer for T Law that was a first round pick, which as stands now is looking at like the 101, 102. I think that's worth it in general now. But we also got Lad McConkey on top of that. Going back to what Matt was saying.
That's like highway robbery.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's a position of value. Lad was a good fit for the Chargers. We still don't know who their wide receiver one is, even though QJ has apparently learned to catch the ball this time. Um, but you know, the 101 for T Law right now looks like a steal to me. And then you add Ladd on top of that, who was also a first round pick this year. Um, that's one trade we did. We left us with two quarterbacks, but getting that first round pick, the extra one, so we now currently have the 101 and 102. It gives so much flexibility.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of ability to move around and do what we need to do, while also netting a wide receiver that's really going to help us because our wide receiver room right now, the players that are impactful for our team is Jalen Waddle, T Higgins, um, and now Lad McConkey. And we have a few other people. I believe we have Brian Thomas, maybe I can't
Mhm.
remember.
Yeah, we do.
So our wide receiver room is really really young. We have no running backs, but that's okay because this draft is loaded with running backs. Um, so really, you're just trying to get as many picks as you can. Move off of those older guys. Find the young talent that you can get. And I would be remiss without saying you need to be getting Bucky Irving. Coach is tired of hearing me say it, and I'm going to keep saying it every single chance I get. His value has already shot up from being drafted in the third to now he's worth probably an early second. And guess what? I'm fine paying that because I think he's going to take that job. But that's enough of that. Other players is Jaden Reed. He might be a little bit expensive, but it's worth inquiring. And finally, if it's a tight end premium league, you should be looking into Hawk. He's on the IR. Not sure when he's going to exactly be coming back, but if you can get him for your team right now, he's going to be probably a pretty good play for you next year. So for us, it's always about getting your pick back, evaluating your team, seeing what you need, who you can move, who you can add, and trying to get back into contention because that's what we're doing. We're trying to win. And like Coach said, rebuilding can be some of the most fun in Dynasty. I really enjoy doing it. I like the challenge of trying to retool and rebuild a team. And the team that Tyler was actually talking about was an orphan team that we took over that was horrible. It was an awful roster, and we have slowly worked its way back up. And now we're sitting with those 2 first-round picks. We've got a bunch of other picks, so I'm really excited to see where that team goes. Coach, do you have any final tips for a rebuilding team?
No, I think also, I mean, we say this all the time, but buy those later round picks, and hope that you can hit on one of those. I mean, oftentimes you don't, but if you sit there and you buy 3 or 4 third-round picks, maybe one of them pays off and becomes a Tank Dell type player for you, which can really help your roster. I mean, add those little things as you go too. You don't just have to add the studs and get first round picks. Get some later picks too, and see if you can work a little magic and honestly just get a little lucky down there as well.
Well, that's going to do it for us, everybody. So be sure to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube at the FF Mediators. Go over on X, give us a follow at the FF Mediators, and of course, we are proud affiliates of the Faceoff Sports Network. So be sure to like, subscribe, and follow them on all their channels, and be sure to catch our live over on X, YouTube every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern. We're going to be going through buy, sell, holds, talking fantasy football, answering your questions. And of course, we are going to continue doing our spaces over on X at Thursday night football at halftime and kind of talk about the games and what we've seen that week and kind of what we're expecting. So we appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will catch you next time.